What starts as an innocent blind date mix-up becomes a deadly game of cat and mouse in this. Emma Chen shows up to an upscale restaurant in bloody teddy bear pajamas, only to discover she's sitting across from her biggest enemy CEO, Sebastian Knight. But nothing is what it seems. Let's see what happens when fate pulls two hearts together at the perfect, imperfect moment. Asterisk, the blood on her teddy bear pajamas had dried to a rust-colored stain by the time Emma Chen pushed through the heavy glass doors of the Golden Rose. The restaurant's crystalline chandeliers cast fractured light across her hollow cheeks, illuminating the purple bruise that bloomed beneath her left eye like a grotesque flower. She shouldn't have come here, not dressed in cotton in desperation, not with her hands still shaking from what she'd left behind in apartment 4B. The hostess recoiled slightly, her practiced smile faltering as she took in Emma's appearance. Blood and silk didn't mix in establishments like this, where the wealthy came to forget that people like Emma existed. "I'm here to meet someone," Emma whispered, her voice raw from screaming. Table 12. She'd memorized the number from Sophia's text sent just before her friend's phone went dead. Before the sirens started wailing outside Emma's building, before everything fell apart, the dining room stretched before her like a golden maze. Each table an island of privilege in an ocean of marble and mahogany. At table 12, a man sat alone, his back to her, shoulders rigid beneath expensive Italian wool. When he turned, Emma's breath caught in her throat. Sebastian Knight looked exactly like the surveillance photos she'd studied for months, except those pictures hadn't captured the predatory stillness in his dark eyes or the way his mouth curved when he spotted something wounded. The CEO of Knight Technologies rose slowly, his movements deliberate as a hunter's. And Emma realized with crystalline clarity that she'd walked directly into a trap. Miss Chen. His voice was silk over steel, cultured and dangerous. Right. On time. Emma's fingers found the flash drive hidden in her pajama pocket, the one containing enough evidence to destroy Knight Technologies and everyone connected to it. The one she'd killed for just 2 hours ago. Sebastian's eyes followed the movement, and his smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp for polite society. "Please," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Sit. We have so much to discuss about your dear friend Sophia." The way he said her friend's name made Emma's blood turn to ice. Whatever game Sebastian Knight was playing, Sophia was already a casualty. Emma was next. Emma slid into the chair, every muscle in her body coiled for flight. The restaurant's ambient jazz couldn't mask the thundering of her pulse, and she wondered if Sebastian could smell her fear the way apex predators scented blood. "You're wondering about Sophia," Sebastian said, pouring wine into a crystal glass with movements so controlled they seemed choreographed. "She's safe. For now." "Where is she?" Emma's voice cracked despite her efforts to sound steady. Sebastian studied her like she was a complex equation he was solving in real time. "Somewhere you'll never find her without my help. The same place Marcus Webb ended up after he tried to steal from me." Marcus Webb, Emma's handler. The man who'd recruited her from Creative Solutions 6 months ago, with promises of justice and enough money to disappear forever. The man whose apartment she'd found ransacked and bloodied tonight, with only a single text message leading her here. "You killed him. It wasn't a question. I defended what was mine." Sebastian's fingers drummed against the table in a rhythm. That reminded Emma of gunshots. "Marcus had something that belonged to me. Something I suspect you're carrying right now." The flash drive felt like it was burning through the fabric of her pocket. Emma forced herself to meet his gaze, remembering every lesson Marcus had taught her about surviving in a world where information was currency and trust was fatal. "I don't know what you're talking about," Sebastian laughed, the sound devoid of warmth. Emma Chen, 29, head of marketing at Creative Solutions by day, industrial spy by night. Recruited by Marcus after your gambling debts reached 6 figures, and your brother's medical bills started piling up. Should I continue? The restaurant seemed to shrink around them, the other diners fading into background noise as Emma realized the depth of her miscalculation. Sebastian wasn't just another mark to be manipulated and robbed. He was the spider at the center of a web she'd stumbled into blind. "What do you want?" she whispered. "Simple." Sebastian leaned forward, his cologne mixing with the metallic scent. A violence that clung to both of them. "I want you to finish what Marcus started. There's someone else who needs to pay for their betrayal, and you're going to help me make that happen." He slid a photograph across the table. Emma's hands shook as she recognized the face staring back at her, older but unmistakable despite the years that had passed. "Impossible," she breathed. "He's been dead for 10 years, has he?" Sebastian's smile turned predatory. "Your father was always very good at playing dead, Emma. Almost as good as he was at abandoning the people who loved him." The wine glass in Emma's hand shattered, red liquid and blood mixing on the white tablecloth as the past and present collided with devastating force. The photograph burned in. Emma's vision like an afterimage, her father's face exactly as she remembered. From the night he'd kissed her forehead and promised to return home by morning. That was 3 days before the car accident that had supposedly claimed his life, leaving behind a 15-year-old daughter and medical bills that would haunt her for the next decade, lying. But even as she said it, Emma could hear the uncertainty in her own voice. Sebastian dabbed at the blood on the tablecloth with clinical precision. "Am I? Tell me, Emma, did you ever wonder why a simple car accident required a closed casket funeral? Why the insurance company fought so hard to avoid paying out? Why your mother developed that drinking problem so suddenly?" Each question was a blade between her ribs, cutting deeper into wounds that had never properly healed. Emma pressed her palm against her pocket, feeling the edges of the flash drive that contained Knight Technology's darkest secrets. Financial records, human trafficking routes, assassination contracts spanning 3 continents. "Your father didn't die in that accident," Sebastian continued, his voice hypnotically soft. "He staged it, took my money, disappeared into the wind, and left his family to suffer the consequences of his betrayal. Even if that were true, what does it matter now?" His throat felt raw. "You said he's been dead for 10 years. I said he was good at playing dead. There's a difference." Sebastian withdrew a tablet from his jacket, swiping through surveillance footage that made Emma's blood freeze. Her father, older and scarred but unmistakably alive, walking through what looked like a Bangkok marketplace, timestamp showed last month. "Chen now goes by William Cross. He runs weapons through Southeast Asia, using the money he stole from me as seed capital. Quite successfully, I might add." Emma stared at the screen, watching her father bargain with men who wore violence like expensive suits. Everything she'd believed about her life, her family, her motivations, was crumbling like sand between her fingers. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because, my dear Emma, you're going to kill him for me." The words hit her like a physical blow. Emma lunged backward, her chair scraping against marble. "Da!" But Sebastian's hand shot out with inhuman speed, gripping her wrist hard enough to bruise. "Sit down." His voice carried the kind of authority that had built empires and toppled governments. "We're not finished." Emma sank back into her chair, trapped by the weight of his gaze and the impossibility of escape. Around them, the restaurant continued its elegant pantomime of civilization. Couples sharing intimate dinners while she faced the destruction of everything she'd ever believed about herself. "I won't do it." "Oh, but you will," Sebastian released. Her wrist and smoothed his tie with practiced calm. "Because if you don't, I'll start by killing your brother. Slowly. Then I'll work my way through everyone you've ever cared about until you're completely alone. Just like your father left you." The flash drive felt heavier now, an anchor dragging her toward depths she couldn't fathom. Emma realized with horrible clarity that she'd been wrong about everything. She wasn't the predator in this scenario. She was just another victim in Sebastian Knight's carefully orchestrated revenge. And the man she'd spent her life mourning was about to become the instrument of her damnation. The Bangkok heat was suffocating even at midnight, pressing against Emma's skin like a living thing as she crouched on the warehouse rooftop. 3 weeks had passed since her dinner with Sebastian, 3 weeks of surveillance and preparation that had led to this moment. Below her, through the grimy skylight, she could see her father conducting business with the kind of men who measured loyalty in bullets. Chen moved differently now, his shoulders broader, his hair silver instead of black. But his hands still gestured the same way when he spoke, still tapped that familiar rhythm against his leg when he was thinking. The mannerisms that had once comforted her now made her stomach clench with bitter recognition.
Oh.
The rifle felt foreign in her hands despite Marcus's training. She'd killed before, but never someone whose bedtime stories had shaped her childhood dreams. Never someone who'd taught her to ride a bicycle and solve complex equations with equal patience. Her earpiece crackled with Sebastian's voice, transmitted from whatever luxurious hotel suite he was occupying half a world away. Beautiful work positioning yourself, Emma. Now you understand why I chose you for this task. Blood calls to blood, doesn't it? Just tell me where Sophia is, Emma whispered, adjusting her scope. Safe, comfortable, waiting for you to complete our arrangement. Sebastian's tone carried that familiar edge of predatory amusement. Though I must admit, I'm curious about something. Have you figured out why your father really betrayed me yet? Emma's finger hovered over the trigger, her father's profile centered in her crosshairs. Does it matter? Everything matters, my dear. Your father didn't just steal money from me. He stole something infinitely more valuable, something I've spent 15 years trying to replace. Scope wavered as Emma's concentration fractured. What are you talking about? Tell me, Emma. Do you know why you're so gifted at reading people? You can slip into any role, manipulate any mark, survive in a world that should have destroyed you years ago. Sebastian's voice turned silky with revelation. You're exactly like your father. And me. The warehouse below erupted into chaos as rival gangs burst through the doors, automatic weapons chattering like deadly insects. Emma watched her father dive for cover, his movements still fluid despite his age, still deadly despite the years. You're not just Emma Chen, industrial spy, Sebastian continued over the gunfire. You're Emma Chen, daughter of two of the most dangerous people alive. Your father trained you without either of you realizing it, and I've been completing your education ever since. You're insane, am I?
I think about tonight, Emma. I didn't just arrange for you to kill your father.
I arranged for you to save him, those men down there. They work for me. This whole scenario is a test. Emma's hands shook as the truth crashed over her like a tsunami. The surveillance, the positioning, the perfect timing of the attack. Sebastian hadn't sent her here to commit murder. He'd orchestrated an elaborate audition. The flash drive you're carrying contains more than just Knight Technology's secrets, Sebastian whispered. It contains the location of everyone you've ever loved. Your brother, your mother, even little Sophia. All of them are safe, but only as long as you make the right choice right now. Below her, Chen was pinned down behind overturned crates, outnumbered and outgunned. Her father, the ghost who'd haunted her entire adult life, was about to die for real this time unless she acted. What choice? Emma's voice was barely audible. Join me, willingly. Become what you were always meant to be, and I'll spare everyone you care about. Try to save him, and I'll kill them all while you watch. Emma stared down at her father through the scope, seeing him not as the abandoning ghost of her childhood, but as the man who'd shaped her into exactly the kind of person who could survive in Sebastian Knight's world. The realization hit her with devastating clarity. She wasn't just her father's daughter. She was Sebastian's perfect protege, molded by trauma and necessity into something that existed in the space between victim and predator. The choice wasn't whether to kill her father. The choice was whether to become the monster Sebastian had always intended her to be. Emma lowered the rifle and pressed her palm against the warehouse rooftop, feeling the vibrations of gunfire through concrete and steel. In the scope's reflection, she could see her own face, hollow-eyed, scarred, transformed by weeks of violence into something that barely resembled the marketing executive who'd stumbled into the golden rose in teddy bear pajamas. I wondered when you'd realize, she said into the earpiece, her voice steady for the first time in months. Sebastian's silence stretched across the international connection like a held breath. Finally, realize what? That I've been playing you from the beginning? Emma smiled, tasting blood on her lips from where she'd bitten her tongue to stay focused. Did you really think Marcus recruited me randomly? That my gambling debts and family problems were just convenient coincidences? Below her, the gunfire had stopped. Her father was moving through the warehouse with lethal precision, disarming Sebastian's men with techniques that belonged to a world far more dangerous than weapons trafficking. Emma watched him work and finally understood why her childhood had been filled with seemingly innocent lessons in observation, manipulation, and survival. Chen isn't just an arms dealer, Sebastian. He's been hunting you for 15 years. Ever since you killed my mother and made it look like a drunk driving accident. And I'm not just his daughter. Emma's voice turned sharp as a blade. I'm his partner. The tablet Sebastian had shown her in the restaurant buzzed against her hip. Emma pulled it out, swiping to the secure message that had just arrived. Package. Delivered. Sophia extracted. Moved to phase 2. Impossible, Sebastian whispered through the earpiece. I have Sophia. I have your brother. I have everything you care about. You have nothing. Emma stood, shouldering the rifle and moving toward the fire escape. Sophia's been working with us since college. Your kidnapping attempt failed because we've been tracking your people for months. My brother? He's never been in danger because he died 3 years ago, Sebastian. Cancer, remember? You attended his funeral? The silence on the other end of the connection was deafening. Emma could almost hear Sebastian's world reshaping itself around the realization that he'd been outplayed by ghosts and teenagers he'd underestimated. The flash drive, he said finally, contains exactly what you think it does. Knight Technology's complete financial records, client lists, assassination contracts, all of it. Emma reached the alley behind the warehouse, where her father was, already waiting beside a motorcycle, his silver hair catching the neon light from nearby street signs. The only question is whether you'll be alive to see what we do with that information. Chen handed her a helmet without speaking, his eyes carrying 15 years of patient revenge finally coming to fruition. Emma had spent her childhood thinking she was learning marketing strategies and social skills. In reality, her father had been training her to destroy the man who'd murdered her family and stolen their life. Emma, wait. Sebastian's voice cracked, with something that might have been desperation. We could have been perfect together. You and I, we understand each other in ways other people never could. You're right, Emma said, climbing onto the motorcycle behind her father. We do understand each other. That's why I know you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when I'm going to appear behind you, just like you made me do. She pulled out the earpiece and dropped it into a storm drain, watching it disappear into Bangkok's underground labyrinth. As the motorcycle roared to life, Emma realized she felt lighter than she had in years. The weight of her father's abandonment, her family's destruction, her own carefully constructed identity as a victim had all been shed like old skin. The warehouse behind them erupted into flames as remote charges detonated, erasing the last evidence of Knight Technology's Southeast Asian operations. Emma wrapped her arms around her father's waist and closed her eyes, finally understanding that some ghosts were worth becoming. 3 months later, in a restaurant very much like the Golden Rose, Sebastian Knight would sit alone at table 12, waiting for a dinner companion who would never arrive. The reservation would be under the name Emma Chen, and the note left with the hostess would contain only 2 words: sweet dreams. By then, Chen and his daughter would be halfway around the world, building a new kind of empire from the ashes of old betrayals. Some stories ended with forgiveness and redemption. Others ended with the patient satisfaction of justice, finally. Served cold. Emma preferred the second kind. Asterisk like this video if the story touched your heart. Subscribe for more emotional tales, and share with someone who believes in the power of true love, and let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers. The end.